2 weeks after I was there, the guy I was with got bit and died. So on the farm, the same farm.
By a black mamba or just by some snake?
By a black mamba.
Why are they the most dangerous but not the most venomous? I don't understand that.
So they're the fastest snake on the planet. They can go up to 15 miles an hour. They're very, very defensive. So, like literally, like they will come at you hard. I mean, they like when you try to.
What are you like if they like, do you need to bother it, or if it's sees you across the way, is it going to come out?
You need to bother it, and we actually even did a little experiment where like I would walk towards it and it would come to me. I'd walk away from it. It would back away. So like, as long as it's not thinking that you're trying to do something to it, it's going to leave you alone. But as soon as like a guy like me is going to try to grab it by the tail, it's going to whip back at you. It's going to fly at you. It's so absolute. I've never, there's really only two snakes. Well, there's some other snakes in the world, but there's two snakes that scare, almost every guy. And I remember I was in a place called Ipswich, Queensland, and a guy named Chris Smith was a amazing elapid, which is the very venomous snake. There's really like two types of venomous snakes. There's, vipers and pit vipers, and then elapids, and like cobras, mambas, and stuff like that are elapid snakes. And he was a great elapid handler. And he told me, there's only two snakes that'll make even the best elapid handler look like a beginner. And that's a coastal taipan and a black mamba, because no matter how good you are, they are unbelievably, and they're very similar body style, right? They're both about 9 foot. They're slender, fast moving snakes. And both are very willing to bite.
I'm going to share this for those on YouTube watching this thing.
Yeah, so that's the coastal taipan. Yep, that's the coastal taipan, which is the second most deadly snake. The inland taipan is actually the first most, but the inland taipan is actually not very aggressive. They're very, very docile, and they don't typically want to bite. They look very similar. You'll see they look very similar, but they're from different regions of Australia.
How long do they get? How big? Like this guy looks big.
So the inlands are probably only about 5 or 6 foot. The coastals will get like 8 or 9 foot, and we caught two coastal taipans in a place called Savage's Crossing when I was shooting for Discovery Channel. And it was probably the most exhilarating moments of my life, even more so than the black mambas that I had dealt with in Africa. Because of the terrain I was on, it was and the other thing is that, of course we had a medic on staff with us at all times when we were filming, but we were about 3-hour hike into the bush. And if you get done by a coastal taipan, you're usually unconscious within 15 minutes.
No kidding.
So like, I mean, I remember talking to the medic early on, and I said, listen, if for some reason we catch a coastal taipan, and for some reason I get done by it, which I certainly hoped I wouldn't. I said, I want to make sure that, like, intubate me and keep me alive and medevac me as quickly as you can. Get me out of here, get me to a hospital, get me treated. And that's all we could possibly do. Thankfully, I'd never been bitten by a venomous snake, and I don't plan on it now in the future either. I'll probably be a little bit more careful over the next year and a half of my life on handling stuff. But I bet you I'll come across some cobras and stuff like that in the next, several months to play with. And yeah, there's the black mamba. And you can see they're really an olive grayish colored snake. The reason
I didn't know that.
If you see the one like to the right with its mouth open, they have a black mouth. And that's why they call them black mambas, is because they're black mouth. It's one of the very few snakes that has a black mouth. And so that's where the name black mamba comes from. But very, very, definitely a snake you don't want to muck with if you can stay away from, for sure.
You've dealt with cobras?
Oh yeah, tons. King cobra,
cobras, no biggie.
You name it. I don't think there's of course there's thousands of species of snakes, but all the ones that you would know about I've dealt with, like all the ones that are like the most common, from, like I said, king cobras, monocle cobras, Indian cobras, spitting cobras, rankles cobras. I mean, you name it, I've messed with them, and whether it's in the wild or in captivity. And then, I love them. I mean, I've always said that I never feel closer to life than when I'm on the tail of something that can kill me, And that's when, some people jump out of planes, some people go fast cars. I want to be with an animal that could kill me. That's my adrenaline. That's my
I feel close to life every day on the tail of something coming by my wife. She's right over there.
Yeah,
So
she's right over there. Yeah,
she's right there. Tail of something that could kill me. On that thing in the I forget, you said it was Animal Planet, where the guy, I remember he like set up on Fremont Street in like a booth.
Yeah.
And I remember him. I don't even like, I don't know why I watched this, because I like just that right now, Googling that, like I had to close it, like icky, for me. But I don't know why I watched it. I remember him taking like every day he released a new snake. It was like 30 days and he would release a new snake into this like little area. He slept in it, lived in it, new like venom, and it got worse and worse every day. I remember him throwing the mamba out of a sack, and it just turned around and like stood up and stared at him. And I think that's the one, you saw this something that like wrapped itself around the camera up in the corner, and then he had to get it out. I don't even know how the hell do you get that thing out? How do you get it out without getting bit?
He used grabbers is what they call them, which is it's one of the safest ways to handle, especially a mamba, as opposed to a snake hook, which is a little bit more sketchy. But yeah, so he did that, and I remember, like I said, I knew Donald well before he did that thing, and it really came from a guy named Austin Stevens, who was he had a show called Snake Master on Animal Planet maybe 15, 20 years ago. It was pretty popular. Another friend of mine, and he actually, so Donald Schultz was from South Africa, and so was Austin Stevens, and Austin actually did 10 black mambas for 100 days in a glass box. And so that's why Donald did, he went to, there's a lady named Marjorie Kaplan was the head of Animal Planet at the time. And like I said, he was working for a company called Gurney Productions, which produced, ironically enough, Duck Dynasty, amongst other shows. And so he was actually a producer on shows. Like, he wasn't a presenter, he was a producer. And he went and pitched Wild Recon to Animal Planet, and Marjorie Kaplan bought 6 episodes of him traveling around the world doing animal adventures. And at the end of the pitch, she said, "All right, we're going to sign you for 6 episodes." He said, "Hey, I've got this idea called Venom in Vegas, where I would set up on Fremont Street, stuff like that." And she, like, on the spot said, "Yep, let's go."
I mean, that's a great title, Venom in Vegas. I mean, that's amazing. So yeah, makes sense.
So that's how the whole thing went down. But it came from, and ironically enough, Austin Stevens ended up getting bitten on the 100th day by a black mamba and almost died. And so he spent 99 days in with black mambas, and then the 100th day, when he was bagging them up, he got bit.
Wow.
So that was the most dangerous part. And Donald did the same thing. Now, ironically enough, Donald actually is in Nitro Circus now with Travis Pastrana. He does extreme stunts. They travel around the world. They do like motorcycle stunts and crazy. It's like a big Red Bull event. It's called.
Where did that's kind of what I look at when you come at, like you said, you're never more alive than at the tail of something that could kill you. But where did this start? Did your parents give you snakes when you were a kid? Were they big reptile people? Like, where did this? What's your earliest memory of like, oh my God, this is I love these things. This is my life.
Well, it's interesting. My earliest memory as a person actually was seeing a ball python at a zoo, and I was under 2 because my mom told me I hadn't even been 2. She remembered taking me to this place, and I remember that moment to this day. Under 2, I remember that moment. So my parents, my dad wasn't very much in the picture, but my mom hated snakes. Still to this day, my entire family, my brother, sister, my mom, my mom's a little older now, but no one's ever kept pets. Nothing. Dogs, cats, animals. I didn't have uncles. I didn't have anyone. It was just, I say some people are just born with something. And that's the one thing that I will say that I've been very fortunate throughout life is that, like, especially, and I've seen this happen with my son, now he's 23 and he's wanting to learn to take over the business and be a part of things and stuff like that. But that's only been over the last couple of years, even though he's worked on and off for me for most of his life. Now he's like interested in being teach me how to do this type of thing. But, I saw him and so many other, my daughter was this way, everyone was this way. You get into that 16 through 25 era and you don't even know what you want to do with your life, right? You're just like, what am I going to do? Do I want to go this route? Do I want to go to college? Do I want to do this? Like, I had no doubt from day one what I was going to do. No doubt. I mean, there was nothing. There was never a plan B.
How'd you define it? What was it? I'm going to handle snakes. I'm going, like, what did you define it as?
I just knew that I was going to work with reptiles and all animals, because I'm an animal lover. I've worked with, big cats. I've worked with rhinos and elephants, and, you name it, I've worked with it. But keeping personally, I've always been a reptile guy as my main thing. So, I didn't know what that meant. And you got to remember that I started my business in 1989 is when I started my reptile breeding company. And at the time, there was not one person in the country that bred snakes for a living, right? And I was just a kid, 17 years old. And I was, thinking like, hey, this might be something I can do a little bit here and there, maybe make enough money to pay myself through college, something on that line. And although my mom hated snakes, she begrudgingly, when I turned 15, let me buy my first snake. So throughout my whole childhood, I would collect garter snakes in Michigan and keep them in my garage. And then in the fall, I would have to let them go before winter so they could go back out in the wild. And that was always the worst day of the year for me, is when I had to let all my snakes that I'd cared for.
How many would you have? How many?
Sometimes I'd have 35, 40 snakes that I caught from the wild, and I'd feed them and I'd take care of them and I'd do all that type of stuff. And I was just a little kid, I used to go collect tadpoles and metamorphose them into toads and then release them. And I mean, I was just obsessed with it my whole life. So going back to, 15, I actually, when I was 14, I would walk home from school every day because I would I also played sports. I know I don't look like a sports guy, but, I wrestled, I was on track, I played football, all stuff like that. So the buses were gone. So I would just have to walk home, which is no big deal. But there was a pet shop on the way home. And so every day I would stop at that pet shop, and they just got to know me. And finally, when I was like probably 3 months shy of 15, they were looking for someone to help. And there's only 2 pet shops in the state at the time that kept small collections of reptiles. Most pet shops didn't keep reptiles. They kept fish, birds, stuff, hamsters, stuff like that. And they needed someone to care for the reptiles. So the owner, Matt Benson, said, hey, would you like a part-time job? When you're out of school, take care. And I was like, yes. So when I turned on my 15th birthday, my mom saw that I was working, and I'd already had money saved up from, paper routes and, doing all kinds of odds and ends. But now I'm making, whatever, $3 an hour or whatever it was back then at this pet shop. And so when I turned 15 on my 15th birthday, my mom finally said, you can get a snake, to keep in the house when I was 15. And then the floodgates kind of opened from there. I stayed in my mom's basement, I had a room down there, and so I built a little reptile room, and I started buying snakes, and she didn't even know, it went from 1 to 4 snakes to 10 snakes to 50 snakes. And she just wouldn't come in the room. And so the thing is, so when I was 16, there was something that's called albino Burmese pythons. The Burmese pythons are the ones that are, in the Florida Everglades now. They're giant snakes and stuff like that. Well, this guy named Bob Clark in Oklahoma produced the first albino Burmese pythons. And up until now, the reptile trade was growing, but it was very closet, and there was no money in it at all. You know what I mean? Like, snakes were pretty cheap and all this other stuff. Yeah, here's Burms here. That's like an albino.
Oh, there's you.
Yeah, there you go. That's me.
You're right in the middle of it.
There was actually a place called Snake Discovery Center in Chicago suburbs.
Holy
yeah,
God,
I remember that day well. That was a beautiful snake. I have one that's almost the same size here that all the guys got to see when they came to visit. But so anyways, Bob Clark in Oklahoma produced albino Burmese pythons, the ones that you were just looking at. And it was the first investment snake that was ever sold. Up until then, there was no one buying and selling snakes for money. And it was more like horse trading, like, hey, I got this corn snake, I'll trade it for like ball python or whatever the case is. So he put them out for $3,200 a pair. Wow. And lo and behold, people were buying them up. And that was the first, wow, you can make money on snakes. So I'm now 16, and all the money I made from the pet shop and all the money I'd made from everything else I'd done in my life was about $3,500. And I had that in the bank, and that was supposed to go to college. Right. because I came, my mom didn't have it, a single mom, she didn't have any money and she wasn't going to be able to put me through college or anything like that. So I literally convinced her, how I don't know how, to spend my entire college fund on a pair of albino Burmese pythons. Wow. And I bought a pair for $3,200. Now, the thing is that when I was 18 and just graduated from high school, that year I made 40 grand out of my mom's basement producing snakes. And so I was like, wait a second here, I want to work with snakes and I'm making 40 grand already and it's just getting going. You know what I mean? So I did go to college for a couple of years, microbiology I was interested in. But at the end of the day, after 2 years of college, I'm like, I was making enough money where, I met my wife, Lori, when I was 19, she was 18, and she came to help me. She didn't like snakes at all. She just would come and help me with the snakes because that was what we did. And she, as a matter of fact, when she first came, she was terrified of them. She wouldn't even walk into my snake room, and now, 35 years later, she's been, my partner ever since. And
did mom ever come around, by the way, just a quick aside, did she ever come around to liking snakes?
Never.
Okay,
As a matter of fact, about a year and a half ago, maybe 2 years ago, it was the first time she had ever visited any of my snake places ever.
Wow,
yeah, she came. My sister lives in Hawaii. She came to town and she drugged my mom to the reptarium. And she was obviously very like, oh my God, this is beautiful. And I think she was really proud, but it was like she had never seen anything I'd ever done before, and I thought that really even through the years, like as I was, sometimes successful, other times not as successful, I don't know that she ever really believed that I was doing well. Like she just thought I'd one day grow out of it. You know what I mean? Like he's going to grow up one day and stop working with snakes. And, but
sorry, you were talking about Lori, 18, 19, you skipped college, or not skip it. You went for a couple of years. She came around. So I apologize. I took you off track there.
No. It's completely fine. Yeah. So anyways, by the time I was 20, we actually were pregnant with my daughter, and we bought our first house with the money from snakes, and then the rest was history. So I was like in the right place at the right time. You know what I mean? Like I was like young, got into breeding snakes when no one was making money. But I was on the cutting edge. So I was part of that initial foundation of people, that 10, 15, 20 people in the world that like grew the hobby from like this like closet thing where there's no money to all of a sudden becoming a multi-billion-dollar industry across the world. And then as I grew over 25 years, that was my main income was breeding snakes. And we had the third largest collection. Believe it or not, at one point we had 30,000 snakes. And then the thing happened that I always say, I always do what I love, right? I don't do the things I don't love. And what happened was I started to not love it because I love the animals, but felt like I was producing widgets at that point because there was so many animals and so much. It was like, you couldn't have an emotional attachment to anything because it was like there was just too much, And so we downsized. 2008, 2010 happened, and that didn't help either. The recession, Great Recession. And so we literally walked away from our building. We downsized about 70%, got the place that I'm in now, was 20, 25% the size business that we were, went from having 15, 16 employees to having 3 employees. And then we slowly, the plan was, okay, I'm going to do this. And although we were grossing way less money, way less money, I was actually living okay, because my net was pretty decent, considering I didn't have that much overhead. And then, but the goal was to always, at that point when we downsized, is to do the educational reptile zoo. That was the goal. Like, okay, we'll get established here. We'll get back on our feet. We'll learn how to run our business this way. And then we'll do the reptile zoo. And that's also when social media started to take off too. Now I had been doing social since 2008, but never really took it that serious. And so about 7 years ago is when I started taking social serious, like, hey, this could be a business, social business. And so I was like really one of the first guys on. I was the first guy on YouTube, Facebook, Instagram that did reptiles. And so I just, again, grew as that grew. And now there's thousands of people that do what I do. And we're just lucky enough to have been around long enough to where we're still one of the top rung animal channels on all the social platforms. But But the goal was to always open up the reptile zoo after, we downsized, because I realized that, again, you talk about goals and purpose. Like for a lot of years, my goal was to be the biggest reptile breeder in the world. And then I realized I don't want to do this. That's not what I want to do. That I want to play with snakes. I want to have animals. And so then I put my money where my mouth was, and instead of having a company that was a 7-digit company, I literally walked away from it. I just was like, hey, we're just fire selling off 75% of my stuff and going in a different direction. And we did. And it was the best decision I ever made at that point, because I was happier, and I've been happier ever since. And then, like I said, the goal was to open up the reptile zoo, do the educational thing, because that's where my real passion is educating people, getting people over their fears, changing people's perceptions. And the same thing happens on social, right? Like every day I get, tons and tons of comments of people that are saying, like, I used to be terrified of snakes until I started watching your videos, and now I actually own one, or, and so it's the same mission, right? The mission, whether the mission is, on YouTube or Instagram or Snapchat or whatever it is. And the same mission is people walking through the door and physically being able to handle stuff. It's just an extension of that. And it all kind of works symbiotically together, right?
Thanks for watching. If you want to see this entire episode, just click or tap here. If you want to see another clip from this channel, click or tap right here.